Welcome to the 14th Annual Voice of Youth Summit. My name is Mehret and this is Nada. We are so excited to embark on this journey with you today. Our guests for today are from Saskatchewan Provincial Institution, Big Brother, Big Sister, the Student Commission of Canada, and Saskatoon Public School Board. Welcome.
We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is treaty territory, a traditional meeting grounds and gathering place of the Assiniboine, Cree, Dene, Dakota, Saulteaux, and Métis. We acknowledge all the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
Yeah, this program is funded by the Government of Canada under the Canadian Service Corps. Thank you to the Government of Canada for providing a platform to amplify youth voice.
Okay, then let's start with the first question. I'll pass it to Claire.
Okay. So when we first picked this topic, we found it was really difficult to find a concrete definition for what this word mentorship meant to us. So after a lot of group discussions, we sent out a survey to our peers outside of our youth group to see if we can identify any common repetitive themes amongst different age groups. So our first question for you is, what does mentorship mean to you?
I guess mentorship for me, it kind of means being leading by example, kind of being someone that you can look up to. Maybe as a mentorship as well means like kind of, seeing that hidden potential within someone and kind of helping them to realize that are kind of the main things that come to mind when I think mentorship.
Thank you. That was a great response. I like how you talk about the hidden potential because everyone has something that they haven't shown yet. Would anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like there's not a set definition all the time, but something that came to mind right away for me is that I think mentorship are relationships. And so how I like to think of that is that it's a two-way street. And so in situations in my life where I felt either that I was maybe a mentor or a mentee, that I was being mentored, I liked that it could go back and forth and that there was a blurred line around like who was the mentor and who was the mentee, because I think that those are just really strong relationships. I also see that there's place for a lot of care and support, but then also kind of encouraging growth and sometimes like challenging with growth. So I think that's something that can be really great. And then another last piece I was thinking of was just like sharing different ways of seeing the world and perspectives and ideas and allowing for that creativity to be shared between two people, I think is really, a good component.
Thank you for sharing. I really like your part about the perspective things because everyone has so many different views on the world. It's really interesting to see how everyone sees the world. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Oh, Dave, you may go.
Thank you. I agree with my previous two colleagues. I would just maybe add on and say that I think mentorship is a vulnerable space where you give of yourself more than maybe you would in other relationships.
I think that vulnerability is a very important part of it. I've seen Mihiret and Superintendent Norris, so I guess Mihiret, you go first, and then followed by.
Thank you, Claire. I just want to have like some follow-up question for Dave. Can you elaborate on you were saying a vulnerable space where you're not sharing with the other person? Can you explain it more?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different relationships that have like an age dynamic to it, or you might have like a teacher-student relationship, or you might have a parent-child relationship, or I would even say sometimes maybe like a coach, an athlete, or those. And while there's elements of mentorship in all those relationships, I think the one thing for me that makes a mentoring relationship stand out is that vulnerability, that exposing places that often I might keep inside or not share as openly as I would when entering a mentoring type relationship. So I think that's one of the differences that I hold inside. I coach as well, and I do a lot of other things that are often kind of lumped into mentoring activities. But when I reflect personally, I think that it's that vulnerability and that, there's more of an emotional investment, probably, I would say, to mentoring relationships.
Yeah, thank you very much, Superintendent Norris. You may continue.
Okay, thanks. I should have said at the beginning, please call me Colleen and not Superintendent Norris. but thank you for trying to be formal. To me, and everyone has mentioned many of the things I was thinking about, but I wanted to talk a little bit about informal mentorship versus formal mentorship. So I think, those informal mentorship situations are they can be very vulnerable, and there can be a lot of relationship involved in that. But I also think it's really important that organizations like schools, like community organizations, also have opportunities for formal mentorship, because sometimes that informal piece doesn't always happen naturally or organically for people. So to have formal mentorship opportunities is also important. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for your great responses. I'll pass on to Susie for our next question.
Okay. So when researching mentorship, we found that there are few community resources for formal mentorship programs for high school youth in our city. After chatting with our group, as well as our friends, we thought that maybe mentorship doesn't always have to be formal, like Colleen has said, and that perhaps anybody could be the person to somebody else, as long as they embody some kind of certain traits. So our second question is, what qualities or qualifications do you think a mentor should have? I think, so Claire raised her talking piece first, then Mary can go after. Yeah, Claire, please.
Well, I think that everyone can be a mentor, but for me personally, I think the most important thing is to have the intention to want to help others, because, I don't know, everyone, they can help each other, but do they really want to do it? So I think it's very important that the person who's mentoring someone has the genuine desire to help someone and watch them grow.
Thank you for sharing, Claire. Mayorette, please.
Yeah, thank you. I also agree with Claire, but for me, I'll say I want the person who will be my mentor, since I'll be mentee, or I want them to have an open conversation where Brandon talked about that leading by example. I know they're leading me by example, but I don't want them to show me just a positive example, because I also want to learn the bad example they have been through in their life. For me, if I'm learning about only the positive things about them or about the world, then when I am encountered with that bad side of the world, it will be really hard. There will be a time I did not know what to do. So I want with my mentor, I'm looking for is them telling me both side of it. I don't want just one side of the world. I need both sides of them, and them being nice and open to listen. It's really what importance to me. Yeah, thank you. So,
thank you for sharing. Dave?
Thank you. I'm just gonna show you guys this first. So this is a hoodie that we had printed in to remember Brandon Applegate. So he was a young guy that I had mentored for years, and he was murdered this fall. And one of the things that he talks about, one of the last times that we interacted actually was with Zoe, and we were videotaping a training session. And one of the things that Brandon talked about was mentoring. And he talked about the difference between a role model and a real model. And he said that he really appreciated our mentoring relationship because I was always real with him. And so I think that is really important, that yes, it was a lot of the good, but it also was sharing a lot of my bad. And he really appreciated that. And I know he learned, learned as much from my mistakes as I did. And I learned as much from his mistakes as he did as well. So our mentoring relationship was really one based on a back and forth and sharing and learning from each other. It had elements of a formal mentoring and an informal mentoring relationship as well. So I think it kind of also depended on what his ask or what his desire at the time was. If it was looking for employment, right, then our mentoring relationship became more formal, because then I was, doing interview practices and helping with resumes, which is, much more under that formal guise. If it was him texting me because he was having problems getting his boys to sleep at night, that would maybe be a little bit more informal. So I think it's important to maybe even within a mentoring relationship highlight what activities are formal and which ones are informal. And if you have a formal mentoring relationship, that's fine. I've tutored with Reed Saskatoon, and that was a very formal mentoring relationship. So I think the activities and the desire of the mentor and mentee needs to be taken into account. So.
Thank you for sharing, Dave. I think what you said is really really helpful. Like, we need to pay attention to like the qualities or what the mentor and mentee are looking for in order to define what the relationship is like. Fola, I see you raising a talking piece, please.
Yeah, I just want to add that trust also should be a major aspect in whether a formal or informal relationship, because without trust, you can't be vulnerable, you can't listen to each other, you have to trust each other, both the mentor and the mentee. It's just like an attribute or something important in that relationship. I just want to mention that.
Thank you for sharing, Fola. That was a great response. Anybody else like to share?
Yeah, well, of course, like building off of what everyone has said, something that I think is just like a really an amazing potential for a mentorship relationship is just to fully be yourself and really allow that to be, again, like as a mentor, as a mentee, or whatever, but just like be you and give space for that, and celebrate all these fun like quirks that we all have, and this uniqueness that we all have, and something that I've learned along the way too that is just so helpful in that is just being curious. So just like asking questions like, what do you do for fun, or what are your hobbies, or like what random thing are you into right now? Like, tell me about that. Even if like you're not into it, it can be really, it's a good opportunity to just kind of be curious and learn about another person.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else like to share?
Yeah, and I also would just kind of like to add that I think consistency is also really important, whether it be an informal or a formal mentorship, and I would also say, I guess, keeping your word to your mentee and not making promises that you might not be able to keep. I'd also say are important components to a mentorship.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Meharet?
Yeah, it's just follow-up questions. I don't know how many of you have a mentor, but if you have a mentor and you've been a mentee, what are like some of the things that you'll learn from your mentor and you would love to pass it on to like a youth that come into your organization to learn about mentorship?
I really related to what Zoe said earlier about learning from my mentee as much as I think they learn from me. And so I think if you enter into those relationships, and I learned that from my mentor with that kind of open stance, that you're learning from each other along the way, it changes the relationship, and it doesn't become so much about, tell me all the information so that I can get this job or do this thing. It becomes more about finding out who you are a little bit, right? Instead of the goal being, you know, an end thing like getting into this college or doing this kind of work. I like to think of that whole process as finding out what your gift is, and then you know, doing whatever it takes to kind of make your daily work fit around what that gift is and what you love to do. I think the other thing I would just want to add is encouraging, because sometimes I think people don't see that gift in themselves, and it takes someone else to identify maybe what that is and encourage them to put themselves out there, and that can be really hard. So I that's something I took from what my mentor did for me, and always try to do when I'm having mentoring conversations, is encourage someone to put themselves out there.
Thank you for sharing, Colleen. Now we are moving on to the next question. I'll pass it to Claire.
Thank you everyone for all your responses. They were very insightful. So from our discussion so far, we have highlighted some key themes that appear across our lived experiences, such as trust, two-way relationships, consistency, having a real model rather than a role model, and I guess the intention to help. So my last question for you guys is, do you think that youth needs mentors? And if so, where do you think they can access like these types of relationships?
Yeah, when I hear this question, I'm like, well, what are you saying? Like, are they saying that they need mentors? Because I think something that happens that can be very challenging is adults can like jump to the idea that youth need mentors without actually asking youth what they want or what they might be missing. I think that, so I think the big part for me, the first thing that comes to mind is just like asking young people if they would like that in their lives, and then also that almost like following up with that second question you asked, then what does that look like for you? And I think that there's a great space to talk about the informal versus the formal, and also like Dave was kind of outlining too, that sometimes that can go both ways. Like they can help with informal things, but also, or help with formal things, but then also have more of an informal relationship. So yeah, that was just the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about that.
Then I guess I'll share one of my, I'm here that I'll let you speak after I speak. So as a IB student, in any moment, I find that like my school life is pretty stressful this year. So it really helped when I had a mentor. She's in university now, but she took IB in Bedford. So she gave me some advice before I started school, and I realized that I didn't really listen because I didn't expect it to be this hard, but it still helped me a lot. And it's just really reassuring to know that someone is there to help me when I need. And it's just like a different type of relationship, because I never spoke to her outside of like when I need help with any school stuff. So, but I still feel like a close connection with her, just because just having, like when someone helps you, I just feel a close bond with them. So I believe that youth needs mentors. I think that everyone in any age group should have a mentor, because I can never stop learning. So, Miharet, you can now speak.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. That was really wonderful to hear your story. Yeah, it just it's also just a follow-up questions. I know I have a lot of follow-up questions, but so like you say that the first thing when you hear this question, do youth need a mentor? That question comes is you're asking them, do they really need a mentor? And I'm just wondering, have you asked a youth that you find or that comes to your organization, well, mentorship, and if you have, and what were some of the answers?
Yeah, I think, well, I can't think of it like a specific time that I've necessarily asked that direct question, but I think that I'm just careful not to like impose that on someone. Like, I just want to make sure that that's something that they want and that they're kind of, and maybe it comes through just having humility as an adult and really just asking lots of questions, like where do you need support? Like what does that look like? Like where can maybe you need a bit more extra help, and maybe that develops into a mentorship role. But I think it does, like it starts with asking those questions that can kind of develop trust, like Fola was talking about as well. So I don't know if that answers directly, but yeah, it's just I think my piece is just trying not to assume.
Yeah, thank you, because like like I myself didn't get a question asking about what I need a mentor. Now I'm like on grade 12. Now it's the time for me to decide which university that I need to go, or if I really want to go to secondary schools or like post-secondary schools. And this is like a really struggles, time when I don't know anyone that can help me into finding the major that I want, or anyone can come and listen to me, because we were talking about that we're all from different country. We have this different cultures around us, and there are also expectation. And I'm also like, I'm in the need of a mentor where it teaches me, like how to overcome some of the struggles, even especially on the school area. And yeah, that's like my experience. I will definitely answer for your question if I need a mentor. I'll definitely say I do definitely need a mentor, and it's for in the area of school education and their academics. Yeah, thanks for answering.
Okay. Nada, I see you have your speaking piece.
Yeah, I just wanted to add about what Mehrat said about like help in high school and like preparing for post-secondary if you're gonna attend post-secondary education or whatever. So I feel like most youth have the same problem as well. Like people don't know really where to access help for this type of things. So just wanted to add this because I really I agree. Like I went through this as well. So yeah.
Thank you everyone for your wonderful responses. And we'll be moving on to our action plan segment now. So now we'll discuss how we can further collaborate and identify items we can do to better promote mentorship within youth. So I'll pass it on to Fola.
Okay. Oh, being critical.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just have a quick questions for Brandon and Dave. I know you guys work with the students, and have you guys ever encountered where a student comes to you and asks you, and I need a mentor in certain area, and what was your response? And also with Colleen, since you guys are working mostly like relate to schools, and yeah, I really want to hear more from you guys.
I would say it's generally not formal. When someone is asking for help or for guidance, and it would normally be the person they have the closest relationship with, and it's often that classroom teacher, or in high school maybe a favorite teacher that they connect with, or more than often it will be their coach that they're involved with extracurricularly, or a drama producer or an art teacher or something like that. That's normally how students kind of reach out for help. Other ways that I would say we see students informally asking for mentorship is by joining different groups, and I think that youth are in the best position to mentor each other. So we do set up different opportunities for youth to mentor each other too in our schools, and we try and do that across different schools as well, so that there's an opportunity to connect. That's become a little bit difficult this year, of course, but we still are trying to set up those opportunities. So in answer to your question, I would say it's not generally a formal, I need a mentor, but there are lots of informal ways that people do ask for help. And I would say our school counselors are the ones that would be most commonly receive that request.
Yeah, the number one ask I had for help this year was to find a place to stay for the night. So I don't necessarily consider that a mentoring role, because I think when you're reacting to like basic human rights or needs, it kind of transcends the mentoring, and it's more of a I don't know, I guess a human human response versus a mentor response. But there's opportunities within those asks for help then to lead to some mentoring, because reacting to those immediate needs of needing a place to stay for the night leads to conversations about how do you keep a place, which I think is more where like a mentoring aspect would come in. How do you live independently? How do you balance your budget? Those kinds of things. So I kind of keep it separate a little bit, but I guess there's still like the mentorship component in that I'm always using those requests for help like that as maybe a way to also, like Zoe said, garner some more information, let my curiosity kind of guide me. And then, I just go back to what Fola said too, like it's really about building the trust with those asks for help. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on to the action plan, and my name is Fola. I'm a grade 12 student in Walter Murray, and still on the topic we're talking about, my question is, what are some mentorship services that are available to youth or people in general that they could like learn from? So services available in schools, extracurricular activities. Yeah, I think Toastmasters is one of them, and if you have any other you could share with us.
Yeah, like the one I involved myself into is the Saskatoon Open Door Campus Companion, where it's a mentorship for high school students who are transiting into a university, where they contact us with the university students that have been into their second year or they already left. So it's really helpful, especially for me. It's really helpful to find those people because they are helping me into my university application and what are some of the expectations that the university is looking for, or what are some of the things that I should look forward to going to the university. Yeah. Thank you for.
Yeah, I'm also like in that program too. And well, my purpose was different. I just wanted to know some like deep things that happen in university, like some clubs to join, not necessarily like applications like that, some clubs, where to go if I need help. So yeah, I'm also in that club too, in that program too. Anybody else? Mentorship services available to youth. Brandon, yeah.
I guess the one I work for, Big Brothers Big Sisters, is a mentorship program that is available to youth. I guess the only drawback I would say is the age limit. So we stop enrolling new youth after the age of 15. So I'd say that's where it gets kind of trickier. In terms of like what our mentors offer, so I said previously they hang out with the youth about once a week in the community, and I guess what that match relationship looks like kind of depends on those individuals. So just to kind of, I guess, give some rough examples. So one of my matches, like what they like to do a lot of is like baking together. So that's like majority of like their activities together. Whereas like I have another match where like the mentors, I guess baking's not really their strong suit. So like what they prefer to do is like they set a personal goal to watch every new Marvel movie together. It's like they're always going to like the theaters to watch those together.
Anybody else wants to mention anyone?
We did. I mean, this is pre-COVID. We haven't been able to really meet with the pandemic going on. But pre-COVID, we did have a group called Saskatoon Opportunities for Youth, which was a group that formed to kind of work on solutions to 4 main issues that they had seen in Saskatoon, which are racism, increasing mentoring opportunities, increasing employment opportunities for youth, and access to services such as mental health and addiction services.
Oh.
So those are kind of 4 areas that we identified years ago, and I'm hoping that maybe this summer we can get back to it.
So does anybody else want to share their response? No. So we're on to our last activity for the action plan. So this is like it's called intention setting. So it's like an activity we're all going to do it together. So basically, in order for us to carry forth what we've learned so far, we're going to say a statement. So it starts with, I intend to, then you continue from there. So let me give you an example. For me, I intend to seek out mentoring opportunities for me. So let's start with Susie.
I intend to look for more mentorship opportunities in a community, and also like spread the mentorship opportunities that I know to my friends so they can all join.
Yeah, thank you, Susie. I intend to find more definition on to what mentorship means and find my own definition to what mentorship is, and finding organizations that work with mentorship and maybe try to become a mentor myself.
I intend to promote the benefits of mentoring, not necessarily for the mentees, but the benefits for the mentors.
I guess I intend to strive to be more assertive, like my informal mentor, the former formal Indigenous Relations Director at our organization.
I intend to inform my friends about mentorship and to make it more available for people.
I intend to involve myself in more leadership programs so that I can educate myself better on topics like this and promote it to my peers around me.
I intend to find out what we already know about this in our school system. So when Fola asked his question, I thought, oh, there's dozens of them, Saskatoon Tribal Council, Boys and Girls Club. I was thinking about them, but I don't know if they all exist still in the same way that I've heard about them over the years. So I intend to canvass our schools and find out what they're advertising to students, and maybe be able to provide that information in one place where everybody can access it.
I intend to ask the question to youth. Have you ever had a mentor, or is that something that you would like to have? Yeah, that was a great question, Mehret, and I appreciate it.
I intend to get better mentorship opportunities inside and outside school for youth, especially for after high school studying and careers and stuff, and make it available for them whenever they need, because it's really important.
Thank you everybody for setting your intentions, and thank you for being here and even sharing your opinions and your thoughts on mentorship. So I'm going to pass it to Miheret for the wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. It was really awesome to hear from you all. And I just also want to thank Fola for the action plan, Claire, Susie, and Jenna for the Q&A.
Thank you for being so brave and sharing your experiences with us today. I learned a lot from hearing your stories. Unfortunately, it's now time to wrap up our conversation. As a closing activity, I would love for everyone to share a word or a phrase that they will take away from this experience today. We will do this activity in a web style. So, for me, mentorship at my school is not always available, which makes things harder for me sometimes because, I don't find places to go to ask people. But because of today's discussion, I've learned so much, which will help me with my mentorship journey over the next years. So, what about you, Mehet?
Oh, for me, I learned a lot, and I heard the same words that we did on our survey again. That was so cool. Like, trust is one of the most thing that we heard on our survey. And the new things that I learned is being led by examples and real model rather than role model. It should be a slogan. I'm serious. That's actually make much more sense. And also definitely being open and being vulnerable with the mentor. And I'll pass to Jenna. What about you, Jenna?
I learned that a mentorship won't have to be that formal or complex. It can be really simple, as only two friends talking to each other or something. And yeah, I'll pass it to Claire.
I think the word that came to my mind was probably unity. because the relationship that mentors and mentees build, it can flow down, like not only between them, but to people around them. I think that mentorship really creates unity within the community. And I'll pass it on to Brandon.
I guess the words that I take away is vulnerability, and I'd say connectedness as well. I think that's really interesting to kind of hear other people in this call kind of saying how mentorship is kind of it's a two-way street, you know, like you both are learning from each other, and you have to kind of like allow yourself to be, I guess, vulnerable, and, you know, like those lived experiences where Dave was kind of talking about, like, you know, the bad side was like really beneficial for his mentee, because he was real with him and he really appreciated that. So just kind of like learning from those lived experiences as well, I'd say. And I think I will pass it to Dave Shanks.
My word today is impressed. I'm leaving very impressed with this panel and how it was organized and how you guys ran it. It was, you know, the icebreaker at the beginning to build some trust, and yeah, I think the whole thing was textbook, safe space right here. Like it.
I think the word that stood out to me was accountability. I feel that everyone has their own part to play and has to be responsible for themselves as a mentor and as a mentee. So I pass it to Zoe.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking about, I don't know, I have a specific word, but I was just thinking about how just people can really benefit from mentorship relationships, both people involved and just a community around that. So that's something that I was really reflecting on. Yeah, and I was also just thinking on how you made this a safe space and how powerful a safe space is in a mentorship relationship. So thank you so much, all the facilitators. It's awesome.
I think the words stand out to me today is lead by example, and also vulnerability, and trust. Those are important words in mentorship. I'll pass it to Colleen.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of words come to mind, and I think it's listening would be the one that really stood out for me. Making sure that you're listening to what the other person needs, what the mentee needs, and to always the idea of asking youth what they need. That's a really powerful idea that I know adults sometimes forget and often think they might know what people need. So that reminder to just sit back and listen and let it happen is a really important one for me.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. At the end, I want to thank every one of you for joining us today and taking the time to listen to us. Also, I want to thank each panelist for sharing your experience and your knowledge about this big topic that just come out of our mind about mentorship, and we really appreciate it.
I also want to thank our funders who helped us in making this event come true. And finally, we want to thank our facilitators and our youth for contributing their voices, the teamwork, and for the effort since last September working on this project and this discussion. I wish you all have enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that you have gained something useful out of this discussion. Hope you have an amazing day, and goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day, everyone.